Welcome to World Talk Brief. Today, we're going to piece together a collection of recent tech headlines because when you put them all together, they reveal a really complex and, honestly, fascinating snapshot of our digital world. Okay, so let's just dive in with this one core question. What if all these stories that seem kind of disconnected are actually previews of the world we're building right now? Let's explore how these headlines tell a much, much larger story about where we're headed. And we have to begin with the biggest story in tech today, right? Artificial intelligence. It's a technology that really has two totally different sides, an incredible potential for good set against some really significant dangers. And this contrast just perfectly illustrates that split personality. On one hand, you see AI doing these amazing, almost miraculous things, like giving people their voices back and even letting the blind see themselves. But on the other hand, the very same technology is flooding our social media with junk or slop. It's creating unsettling digital ghosts, and it's leading some experts to warn that the world itself is in peril. Let's start with that promise, the good side. We're seeing these powerful stories, like Patrick Darling, who, after a motor neuron disease diagnosis, is actually using AI to perform again. And then you have the development of AI mirrors, a technology that gives blind people visual feedback about their own bodies, in some cases for the very first time. I mean, these are genuinely life-changing breakthroughs. But then you have this, a really stark warning. And get this, it comes from an AI safety leader who felt so strongly about the risks that they actually left the industry to study poetry. The contrast is just jarring, and the seriousness of that statement, especially coming from someone on the inside, is pretty hard to just brush aside. And here's a little glimpse into why they might be so concerned. Our social media feeds are just being flooded with this low-quality, AI-generated content that people are calling slop. You have researchers experimenting with these really unsettling ideas like deathbots created from their own voices. And with AI-generated videos and even virtual singers getting millions of streams, that line between what's real and what's fake is getting incredibly blurry. Okay, so let's shift gears to our second theme. This whole explosion in technology, it's all fueled by one thing, data. And that brings us straight to the price we all pay for privacy in this modern world. So, simple question for you. Do you think you can actually avoid being tracked online? Because, the reality is a whole lot more complicated than just deleting an app from your phone. Yeah, here's the crucial point. Platforms like TikTok are building these enormous data harvesting empires that go way beyond just their own users. They have trackers embedded all across the web, which means that simply not having the app doesn't mean you aren't still giving them your data. And this surveillance, it really exists on a spectrum. On one end, you've got the huge corporate tracking, but on the other, much more malicious end, you have actual criminal acts. We're talking about a couple who discovered their private moments in a hotel room were filmed and broadcast online, or the incredibly personal violation of a hacker stealing and publishing a person's private therapy notes. So this widespread feeling of losing control over our data, our reality, our privacy, it's leading us to our third big theme, a growing pushback from governments and individuals who are finally trying to draw some lines in the sand. And we are seeing this kind of regulatory action pop up all over the globe. Russia is ordering a block on WhatsApp. India is telling social media platforms they have to remove unlawful content within just 3 hours. And over in the UK, regulators are forcing changes to Apple and Google's app stores to try and break up what they're calling an effective duopoly. And this isn't just talk either. It comes with some serious financial penalties. For instance, a porn site in the UK was just hit with an £800,000 fine. Why? For failing to put in mandatory age verification checks. It just goes to show you that regulators are willing to enforce these new rules. And the pressure isn't only coming from regulators. You've got public figures like Prince Harry, along with politicians and parents, and they are all demanding accountability from platforms like Instagram for the impact they're having on the mental health of young people. The calls are just getting louder and louder. So, when you put all of these pieces together, the promise and the peril of AI, the slow erosion of our privacy, and this big fight for control, it becomes pretty obvious that we are standing at a digital crossroads. We are, right now, actively trying to figure out these fundamental issues. How do we balance incredible innovation with public safety? What's the right trade-off between convenience and our own privacy? And what do freedom and responsibility even mean in a world that is lived more and more online? And look, these aren't abstract questions for some far-off future. The rules for our digital lives are being written right now in corporate boardrooms, in government regulations, and frankly, in our own daily habits. So the question is, as those rules are being written, what choices are we going to make? Because ultimately, those choices will determine what our future looks like. Subscribe to World Talk Brief for more clear, thoughtful explanations.